on the floor of the United States Senate. I also want to thank my good friend and ranking member on the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, Jerry Moran. We always pride ourselves in the Veterans Affairs Committee of working together, checking politics at the door. And Jerry has been great to work with over my time as ranking member and my time as chairman when we swap positions. This is historic legislation. It is named after a veteran who, and you correct me if I'm wrong, was Guardsman of the Year, I believe, in 2013?
Yes, Ohio Army National Guard, NCO, Soldier of the Year.
And was
2012 and
13, and was exposed to burn pits in 16?
No, 2007.
2007, and passed away because of his exposure to those burn pits. We've got a lot of folks behind us that have either lost loved ones or have loved ones right now that are suffering from life-threatening diseases because of burn pits. This is long overdue legislation because, quite honestly, it's burn pits today. Yesterday it was Agent Orange. We haven't dealt with that in a way that has made sense for fighting men and women for this country. So this bill, which is very comprehensive, it's a big bill. It's a bill that's going to offer health care to potentially 3.5 million veterans in this country. It's a bill that comes with a cost because fighting wars comes with a cost, not only while they're in theater, but when they get back home, the men and women who have served that have injuries due to their service to this country. The cost of this bill is about $278 billion over 10 years. But this is also about doing right by the people who serve this country. We all have an all-volunteer military in this country, and if we're going to send a message to the next generation of soldiers that we have out there, this bill has to pass the United States Senate. As I said before, this is the time to pay the full cost of wars. Our nation's veterans are counting on it. Their families are counting on it. And we simply cannot fail. Once again, I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to introduce Senator Jerry Moran.
Chairman Tester, John, thank you very much. Thank you for the relationship, the friendship we have, and the capability of you and me and the members of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs to work together to find a solution to a problem that has been long with us, and as you indicated, needed to be addressed years ago. And I'm pleased, as part of my time in the Senate, to be part of a group that is making the effort. And after this week or next week, we expect to have the results. I've always complained that people thank me for my efforts, and I'm not complaining that they thank me, but when they thank me for my efforts, I wish they were thanking me for results. And efforts are good things, but results are much better. It reminds me of my engagement in caring about veterans occurred when I was 16 years old in high school, about ready to graduate, and those who were returning from Vietnam, people who I went to school with who happened to be a year older than me or 2 years older than me, were leaving for Vietnam. And I saw how the returnees were treated when they returned to the United States by their fellow citizens, and made a commitment to myself that I'm going to do everything I can to compensate by paying respect and honor. I never expected in my life to be a United States Senator, and when I was elected to office, it became clear to me that paying honor and respect is important, but it is insufficient. We needed results, and we need to be caring for those who served our country. The Heath Robinson Act goes so far, a long way, in making a reality, something that many of you in this audience have dreamed about, have worked for a long time, for a long, long time. And I want to thank all the veterans who are engaged in this effort, the veteran service organizations, and I especially want to offer my condolences and sympathy to the family of Heath Robinson and others in like circumstances. One of the spouses behind me just indicated that her husband is suffering from these conditions and is hoping to live long enough to see this bill become law so that he knows that his kids are cared for when he's gone. I spoke at a Memorial Day service in Wichita, Kansas over the weekend, and a Navy man visited with me to tell me that he and his father both served in the Navy, were encountered toxic exposure. Neither one of them believed they had the symptoms, but they lived every day with the uncertainty of knowing that the symptoms ever developed, would there be anything at the Department of Veterans Affairs to be able to do for them? So in addition to caring for people, perhaps we're also providing some certainty that they and their families will have assistance should this dreaded circumstance arrive in their lives. So this is a day for us to express gratitude to all of you who have lobbied us, who have informed us, who have encouraged us, and I would just ask you to continue to do that over the next few days to my colleagues in the United States Senate. Let them know why this legislation is important. And again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support of this legislation. And I'm anxious to get it across the finish line. Not so we can have a check in the box and say we had a legislative victory, but to say that we're actually doing something that will make a difference in the lives of those who served our nation. We're grateful to them. We ought to demonstrate it by providing these medical and medical benefits and pensions and financial benefits that these individuals, these servicemen and women so greatly deserve. Again, thanks to Chairman Tester and to the members of the Senate Veterans Committee for giving us the opportunity to try to resolve this issue. And John, I don't know what's next.
Well, I'll just say next up we've got Senator Martin Heinrich, who's chairman of the Appropriations VA Milcon Committee, who has been a great help to Jerry and I in getting this bill to where it is today. Martin, thank you.
Thank you, John. And I want to start and just express my gratitude for all of the veterans and advocates and family members who made this possible today, all of us, and I'm so grateful for the relationship on the Veterans Committee, because it is bipartisan and it is real, and with Senator Bozeman on the appropriations side of this too, it has been equally bipartisan and real, and we just wouldn't be here today without all of those advocates. And I want to put a New Mexico face on this, just because every one of us could tell probably multiple stories about constituents who have faced this. In New Mexico Air National Guard Master Sergeant Jesse Baca has been the spark plug for these issues for years. He worked on fighter jets in Iraq, was exposed to toxic burn pits, came back, developed constrictive bronchitis, which is a potentially life-threatening condition. And he and his wife, Maria, have just been tireless. They led the call to establish the Airborne Hazards and Open Burn Pit Registry at the VA. And it is people like them from all across this country fighting day in and day out who made this possible. So I will just add one last thing as chair of the Military Construction and VA Appropriations Subcommittee, and that is that I am very proud that we're getting this right, that we are not robbing Peter to pay Paul with this legislation. We are not taking away from other veterans' benefits in order to make this happen. We are making this right, and we are paying the full freight of the decisions that get made in this building to send young men and women to war. I'm very proud of this legislation, and if we get this right on the floor, it'll be something that I think all of us will remember for the rest of our lives. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Martin. Next up, we have Senator Jon Bozeman, who is ranking member on the VA Milcon Committee and also serves on the Veterans Affairs Committee and has been instrumental in getting this bill to where we are today.
Thank you. Special thanks to Chairman Tester, Ranking Member Moran. I know how hard you've worked, and then also your staffs that we're really relentless in getting this together. It's a great example of bipartisanship. I've been on the Veterans Committee in the House, now in the Senate for many years. Nothing is more bipartisan than the Senate VA Committee. It's all about not Republicans and Democrats. It's about taking care of the people that volunteered, that have served us for so many years. They were successful in crafting a bill that upholds our commitment to veterans, but very importantly, as was mentioned earlier, it doesn't take away from the commitment we've already made to so many other veterans. It doesn't overwhelm the system. And so again, that was so very important. Nothing gets done without our veteran service organizations. Thank you all. We're the tip of the spear, but again, without these folks, it just doesn't get done. John, we appreciate your jumping in and doing a great job pushing things forward. So we've just had so much help from so many different people. As I said earlier, I've been on the Veterans Affairs Committee for a long time. I grew up in a military family. I saw how long it took to get the Agent Orange situation straightened out from our Vietnam vets. What we didn't want to happen was that our post 9/11 vets would go through the same thing. And it's been difficult, but we really have achieved so much in this legislation. I also want to give a big shout out to Bill Rhodes. He was a Thailand Vietnam vet. They were exposed to Agent Orange, so through some fluke, they were the only entity that was not allowed to draw benefits and get the health care that they needed. So through Bill Rhodes visiting with myself, my staff, and just being somebody, we're all called to do different things, but he was able to really be instrumental in getting that portion of the bill passed. So thank you guys again. Thank all of you all for your great work in making it such that I think in the not too distant future we're going to be able to celebrate passage. Thank you.
Next up, we have Senator Gillibrand. This bill is a compilation of bills, and Senator Gillibrand has been like a bulldog, making sure that we get this bill to the floor today.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member. Thank you to all my colleagues on the relevant committees who have fought for this and will fight for this. But my greatest thanks goes to our service members and their families. Our service members have borne the brunt of the battle every time. They go into very unsafe places because we ask them to. They give everything for our country, for our freedoms, for our values. They will fight to the very end. But when they come home, what they expect is that their country will stand by them. They expect that their country will have their backs. That's what this bill finally does. This bill rights a wrong that has been going on for far too long, starting with Agent Orange, starting with Blue Water Navy vets, and now with these burn pits. When our service members are asked to serve, and their country opens up massive burn pits where they throw in everything from human waste to medical waste to computer technology to anything they need to burn and light it on fire with jet fuel, the toxins that are emitted from that burn pit are deadly. And we knew this already because this is exactly what happened at 9/11. It's why Jon Stewart and John Field are here. It's because they saw what happened to the first responders and the people who answered the call of duty on that day and the weeks and months thereafter. So this bill, along with many other reforms that Chairman Tester and Ranking Moran have made, is going to fix so many parts of the VA that are broken. It's going to make sure that these men and women who breathed in these toxins and are now suffering and dying of horrible cancers, throat cancers, glioblastoma, brain cancers, they actually will get the health care they need to survive. And if they do pass, that their families will be compensated and protected. This is the cost of war. And make no mistake, Congress will support these war fighters and their families. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, we have my good friend Senator Brown from Ohio, who sits on the VA committee and has been kicking our butts every day to make sure this bill happens.
John, thank you. Good to be here. Senator Tester, Senator Moran, Senator Bozeman, and Gillibrand, and Heinrich. Thanks for your work. Thank you especially to the veteran service organizations, but it wasn't the VSOs as VSOs. It was individual veterans in Ohio and Tennessee and California and Maryland and Michigan and all over the country that walked the halls here, didn't you, Susan? Every week, every month, every year, and made this happen. So thank you. Everybody said what's needed to be said. I appreciate my colleagues' involvement. And we know that we send men and women to war. They take an oath to this country. We take an oath to them that we take care of them when they get home. If you're exposed to toxins while serving our country, you deserve the benefits you earned, period, no exceptions. That's what this bill finally did. We finally does. We took a long time to do it right on Agent Orange. It's not completely done right, but mostly done right. Thank you for the efforts of everybody on this committee, but especially veterans and veterans' families around the country for stepping up. It's my honor to introduce two people who are going to speak to us today, after whom the bill's named. Heath Robinson from Ohio, his mother-in-law, Susan Zaire. Susan has been Susan has been coming to our office, working with our staff, with Anna and Drew, and in our office for years, pushing and pushing and pushing, not taking no for an answer, buttonholing people in the hall. Told me when she ran into you, Tester, when she ran into you, Moran, you were already supportive and helpful, but she just never quit. And we also have Heath's daughter, Susan's granddaughter with us, and she will speak. You first, or
Brielle wants to
okay?
go first.
Brielle Robinson will go first to talk about her dad and talk about what we're doing. So, Brielle.
Pick you up so you can reach them up here. Let me see if I can pick you up.
Sure you can pick me up?
I can pick you up. Here, you hold. Will they bend down?
They should.
Here. Here we go. Okay, can you see it?
My name is Brielle Robinson. Fight for the heroes who fought our country and pass my dad's bill. The sergeant class first, the sergeant first class Heath Robinson, PACT Act. I love my dad.
Thank you. Good job, baby. Okay, Sherry. It's not this long, I just wrote a couple spaces. First of all, I want to thank you, Senator Brown, for always having our backs, for reassuring us that our voices matter, and for encouraging me to carry Heath on my shoulders when I'm advocating by wearing this. Thank you, Senator Tester and Moran, for coming to the agreement on the PACT Act that we have today. I'd also like to thank my Ohio Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur, who in 2017 suggested I contain my anger and hurt and turn it into a fight mode. Also, many thanks go out to Senator Gillibrand and Representatives Raul Ruiz and Joaquin Castro and former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard for encouraging us and fighting alongside us over the years. And lastly, Congressman Tim Ryan. Mr. Ryan has picked up the burn pits ball and run with it, and is here for my family, for which we will always be grateful. As the mother-in-law of Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, I came to realize what a burn pit was back in 2017 when he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. The manner in which his cancer presented was rare and could have only been caused by prolonged toxic exposure, according to his oncologist. He told us he was based near a burn pit for months while in Iraq. 1 month prior to his cancer diagnosis, we learned he had a rare mucous membrane autoimmune disease that caused him to have reoccurring gushing nosebleeds and bleeding from his ears. Needless to say, he spent his final 3 years on Earth battling the war that followed him home. He fought valiantly to live for his daughter Brielle. He told us that he is a soldier, and soldiers don't know how to give up. Today, I'm asking each and every senator to vote yes and pass the Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson honoring our PACT Act. This is the day the Senate has the opportunity to not give up on our brave men and women who willingly went off to war in America's name and are now sick and dying due to exposures from burn pits and other toxins. Caring for Heath eventually became a round-the-clock ordeal, so I moved into their home to help. He had spontaneous gushing nosebleeds while vomiting, rendering him unable to have the oxygen tube in his nose. We would hold basins to catch the blood and vomit while shoving the oxygen tube in his mouth in between vomiting spasms so he wouldn't die. This was physically and emotionally draining on us, especially for Danielle, who is a full-time working physical therapist. Lack of sleep and the stress of knowing that at any given moment Heath would have to be rushed to the nearest emergency room because he couldn't breathe led her to collapse or pass out a few times. leading them to apply for VA comprehensive caregiver benefits. Their claim was denied with an explanation that even though Heath's lung cancer was 100% service-connected, he was unable to prove that burn pits or any other combat-related trauma was the cause. The burden of proof is put on these sick soldiers and their families. I am here today fulfilling a promise I made to my granddaughter's daddy. He begged me to continue telling his story in order to have Congress pass into law presumptive benefits, which would stop the delays and denials for thousands of burn pit veterans, many of which you see standing here today. When I began this journey of advocating with Burn Pits 360 for Heath and his comrades, I thought it would be easy, but I was wrong. After countless trips here to Capitol Hill, I soon came to realize that I was naive in thinking that our members of Congress would be running to help us. Instead, we have been running to you, having to come here at our own expense, tethered to oxygen tanks, in wheelchairs, walkers, full of pain, struggling to breathe while begging for help. Today is the day. You might as well vote yes, because we will never give up. We will never go away. We will never stop coming back to fight for the men and women who fought for us. So just vote yes. We're right here. Run to us. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to thank the Robinson family very, very much.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all the advocates and the people who spoke here that serve in the Senate. Next, we have a number of veteran service organizations that are going to come up and speak. When Jerry and I had our joint sessions with the House, and we heard the veteran service organizations when the Congress first began, you never want to say every one of them, but I'm going to say every one of them had burn pits as their number one issue. And they talked about it, and they talked about it just as we're hearing today. We're going to hear from a number of VSOs right now. We're going to start with the DAV.
Good morning, thank you. I'm Shane Lerman, DAV Deputy National Legislative Director, and on behalf of our more than 1 million members, we thank Senators Tester and Moran for their leadership on this bill, and we're so excited that it's been a bipartisan effort in order to get the Heath Robinson Honoring Our PACT Act where it is today. I also want to thank all of our VSO colleagues, veterans, and their family members for all of the hard work they've done for months, years, to get us where we are today. And I want to thank our DAV members who just yesterday made over 800 phone calls to the senators here yesterday, urging them to vote yes on the PACT Act. We have a unique opportunity, right? We must take advantage of where we are right now. It's an historic opportunity to enact thoughtful and meaningful toxic legislation once and for all. But veterans and their families, they can't afford to continue to wait for decades like many past generations who were exposed to mustard gas, radiation, contaminated water, Agent Orange. We must act now. As noted historian Heath Northcote Parkinson said, delay is the deadliest form of denial. The Senate must act now to pass the PACT Act. Thank you. Up next is my good friend and colleague from the VFW, Christina Kennan.
Good morning. My name is Christina Keenan. I'm the Associate Legislative Director for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. On behalf of our 1.5 million members and the auxiliary, I want to express the VFW's strong support for the Honoring Our PACT Act. Last year, the VFW, together with our partner veteran service organizations, asked Congress to put together various toxic exposure bills together, like pieces of a puzzle, into a comprehensive solution to help toxic exposed veterans, and Congress listened. The Honoring Our PACT Act is the solution for toxic exposure. And even though this is a House bill, much of the legislation was born out of Senate-introduced bills. The amended language addresses VA's implementation concerns, and both the VA and the administration have made statements in support of the PACT Act. It passed the House with bipartisan support, and we ask the same from the Senate. To every senator, if you support veterans, show it and vote yes for the PACT Act. The veteran groups here today joined together yesterday and visited every Senate office, and some were still asking us, what is the cost of the PACT Act? I ask, what is the cost of taking care of sick veterans? Veterans who risk their lives defending our country. While it's true that the cost estimate for the amended bill is lower than the House-passed bill, truly, how can anyone ask about the cost of a veteran's life? This is a cost of war. The VFW thanks Senators Tester and Moran for your leadership on this historic veteran legislation. We must not delay any longer. The time is now. I ask that every U.S. Senator vote yes and pass the PACT Act. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce my colleague Alex Morosky from the Wounded Warrior Project.
Thanks, Christina. Good morning, everyone. I'm Alex Morosky from Wounded Warrior Project, and I want to start off by thanking Chairman Tester and Ranking Member Moran for your leadership on this important bill. This has been years in the making, and they put this bill together meticulously. And I'd like to add, and I'd like to thank them for incorporating input from veterans organizations every step of the way, all leading up to this moment. It's time to start voting. And the decision on how to vote should be a pretty simple one, in our view. This is about keeping promises, plain and simple. When Americans volunteer for military service, we make a promise to them that if they get wounded in some way, that there will be health care and benefits and support for them when they come home. That promise is being broken for toxic exposure veterans. As a country, we're good at recognizing physical wounds. We've gotten a lot better at recognizing mental wounds. We are still not good at recognizing toxic wounds, devastating toxic wounds. But the PACT Act is going to fix that. So, we're here today to ask every U.S. Senator to stand up for the people who stood up for this country, to keep the promise to them, and to vote yes on the Honoring Our PACT Act. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Jeremy Butler from the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Butler. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, and I'm a Navy veteran. There's very few absolutes when it comes to legislation before Congress. The PACT Act is one of them. Every senator has an option today. They can stand on the right side of history and finally do what our government has delayed and denied for too long, or they can once again turn their backs on every veteran that has ever served this country. A yes vote today means righting decades of wrongs, not just for post 9/11 veterans, but for Vietnam veterans, for those that served during the Cold War and exposed to radiation. The list goes on and on. This is not a unique phenomenon in our government and our country's history. We too often send our service members into harm's way and then act as if we have no responsibility to take care of them when they come back. A yes vote today by every single senator is the only acceptable option. Anything else sends a clear signal to every service member that's currently serving, every veteran that has ever served, and every young person that is considering joining the military. It would send a signal that the government will use you, they'll abuse you, and when they're done with you, they'll happily throw you away. So there's one option today, and that's a complete and unanimous vote on the Honoring Our PACT Act. We'll be watching, and we'll be taking notes. Thank you. Sorry, thank you. American Legion is next. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. On behalf of the American Legion National Commander Paul Dillard and our Legion family of over 3 million members, I would like to personally thank Senator Tester and Senator Moran for continuing to put our veterans' health first. 3 million. That includes sons and daughters, spouses, parents, grandparents, grandkids, and their kids after that. And that's only a fraction of the total population of veterans and their families that are represented here by these veteran service organizations here today. It's one thing to welcome us home, to thank us for our service, and to ask for our continued support. It's quite another to stand next to us and help us literally fight for our lives here at home. This week, our nation's senators will find themselves making a choice. The choice between continuing to support those who fought our nation's wars or to stand idly by while our bodies break down from disease and illness. Disease and illness we incurred through our service to the American people. We would do it again, and we will be watching to see how the people that we voted for to put into office vote for us. I hope we can soon celebrate this legislation together, and you will feel good knowing that you did the right thing, the best thing for those who fought for you. Fight for us and vote yes on honoring our PACT Act.
Next up, we have Rose Torres from Burn Pit 360.
We love you, Rosie.
I just want to thank every congressman and senator. You know, 13 years ago, we walked the halls as families, these families right here, at our own expense, clueless as to what we were doing. But we had one thing in common. The government was, you know, putting up this tactic of delay and deny. Year after year, we walked with these families, you know, together to accomplish a goal. So we thought, let's pass a bill for a registry. We got the bill passed for the registry. Obviously, that wasn't enough. And as the years went by, as you can see here, more and more people called us, called our little nonprofit in Texas, asking for help, begging for help. Mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, people like Susan, Kim, Kevin, Tim, Amanda, and so many others. You know, we felt alone in the fight many times, but we knew that, you know, from being part of this families, military families, and being just experiencing the delay, the deny, and the no's, and go away and build systemic momentum, and then come back, and then maybe you'll have a bill. So, you know, I say that God gave me wisdom to pick up the phone one day while I was watching Fox News, and I saw Jon and Jon on TV. And I said, I need to get a hold of those guys. So thankfully, Perry over at Fox said, I have their number. Call Jon Field. He answers the phone. Like, it's you dial it and it goes direct to Jon. I dialed it, sent some videos, sent pictures of the families, testimonies, videos of Heath crawling up the stairs, gasping for air. Kim calling me, Rosie, I don't have benefits. How am I going to put food on the table? So thankfully, Jon called Jon, and they said yes. They didn't have to say yes because they had already been, for many, many years, 2 decades almost, I think, fighting for the 9/11 community. So I just want to say, Senator Tester, Senator Moran, thank you for believing in us, in the families, in these nation's heroes, and standing up for the right side of justice, for not letting them be forgotten. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of Burn Pit 360, all the families. I want to thank all of these organizations that came forward and stood beside their members and the people that support them. And I just thank them from the bottom of my heart as well. So, you know, I urge Congress and the Senate to vote yes. You're saying no to these families, these survivors, the widows, the mothers, the fathers. If you say no, you're saying no to them and our future generations. So thank you. It's been a long, you know, probably maybe 2 decades for some people that have been on the Hill before we even came along on this issue. So thank you. I urge you to vote yes. Stand on the side of justice and do what's right. I want to now pass it on to the next person. Thank you.
Next up, we've got Jon Field.
I think Rosie made me sound older than I am. This is a process. Authoring a piece of legislation is easy. Getting the other side and getting somebody to co-sponsor is difficult. Getting support from more people gets harder. Passing that legislation is extremely hard. The process is ugly at times, painful at times, and while people are waiting, they die. But in the end, you hope you could save as many lives as possible. This has been a sprint. This is not a marathon. But we're here today because of your will. That is a testament to your resolve. Your will is stronger than anybody's politics in D.C. My will is stronger than anybody's politics, religions, or what they're going to think they're going to have for lunch. You men and women have served your country proudly. But what you're going to do in the next couple of days is historic. It is majestic. It is done by a few, and be proud of that. I am the luckiest man alive. I am literally the luckiest man alive that for the last 13 years, I got to work with the coolest son of a bitch ever. This man deserves every accolade he gets. But before I get to him, while I thank the senators for doing their job, it's people like Tony and Simon and Lindsay that roll up their sleeves, that get behind closed doors. That's part of the process. And they negotiate, and they talk, and then they come back to us. Is this good enough? Those are the people that deserve the credit. Those are the people that you never see on TV. Those are the people you never hear about. Those are staffers that have the brain power of Einstein and the compassion of Mother Teresa. And they deserve just as much credit as the VSOs. And while I'm going to save my last speech for when this gets passed, and it will get passed, and you'll have over 75 yes votes, don't worry about those who vote against you. We already know who they are. Let's concentrate on those who are going to support you and thank them. That's what's important. But I'm telling you now, before I introduce this man, if the president is looking, if Chuck Schumer's listening, this man deserves the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Shut up. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. I've seen this man cry. I've seen this man laugh. I've seen this man roll up his sleeves, get up. I've seen him come out of character when I didn't know who he was. He was a monster. But he has no agenda, and he loves humanity. Jon Stewart.
Really, I would settle for an honorary doctorate from Yale. I don't know if they're here today. Listen, man, what you see behind you is a product of how this system is supposed to work, albeit on a much longer timeline than it's supposed to work. All these groups are responding to a real problem within the constituents that they represent. They saw that the consequence of the heroism and sacrifice that our military men and women made were horrible diseases and horrible disabilities that were not being addressed by the system, whose very motto is for those who bear the battle, for their widow and for their orphan. It's remedial. I think we have a problem here. This seems to be a solution, so let's get that done. Unfortunately, things don't necessarily work out in that kind of a straightforward manner. So what happened was all these different constituencies who were sort of working in their own fiefdoms, and they were all working in good faith with some representatives that were also working in their fiefdoms, and everybody was kind of developing their own plans. And it was taking longer, and they were meeting resistance, and people would roll their eyes and these kinds of things. And then they joined together in the manner in which they actually served this country. They took the lessons of their service and they unified towards one common goal, and they became unstoppable. It's been an incredible honor to see you all harness your powers and abilities. And Rosie, man, from her garage out of the necessity of bankruptcy and despair. Brought all this together. I'm just honored. And you feel the difference, that this is how it's supposed to work. No vitriol, no grandstanding, no nothing. Just Americans together working to find a solution to a very real problem. My God, how we've missed this feeling. I feel like we're in one of those commercials where somebody with chocolate runs into somebody with peanut butter. And they all look at each other like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it's not done yet. And sadly, there are going to be some idiots in the Senate, and somebody's going to put a hold on it. And one guy's going to pretend to be a principled libertarian for the day. And we're all going to have to wait another week or two. And unfortunately, in that week or two, one of these great men and women is going to die or suffer needlessly for the grandstanding and partisanship that we've come to expect. But mark my words, they are unstoppable. They are a force of nature. The legislative aides that have worked tirelessly on this for years, the senators that got together in rooms where there weren't television cameras to put this all together. This fixes a very real and dire issue that Americans have been facing for decades in the way we go to war. And so today, you'll see who actually still represents a functioning American democracy and government, and you'll see those that are still representing the narcissist party. And they care only about themselves and their brand. So I'm looking forward to the vote. This is America, so the vote today is not for the bill. It's for the cloture, for the debate of the bill. And then, of course, we'll have the clock goes to 30 hours. And then perhaps there'll be an amendment process. Now, the amendment process, they may vote on it, they may not. But hopefully that will get us to the 60 vote threshold for cloture to end the debate. And if we are able to end the debate, then, of course, it will go to a vote, which I believe the vote at that point is 26. You only need 20, or wait, no, it's 38. I think you need 38 at that. No, maybe 51. Who knows? The whole thing. This is why I got a D in civics. But the point is this. Real men and women who served this country through heroism and sacrifice, whether they were fighting for freedom or just trying to get out of a drug treatment program, doesn't matter. They kept their covenant with this country, and today is the day that this country says if they're going to keep their covenant with them. And I thank you guys very much for the opportunity and the honor to be with you and walk the halls and have the hugs and do all those great things. Thank you all so much.
I want to echo what John Field said, and that is that as a senator, we take credit for the great work our staff does, but without our staff, we would not be here today. And I want to thank all the staff members who worked so very, very hard on this bill to make it a reality and answer the questions and continue to answer questions as we try to get this bill across the finish line. We will take a couple questions if you have a couple. Otherwise, we'll bid you adieu. Any questions? Yes.
Actually, Senator Moran, both Johns just referenced some of the Republican opposition to this. I know the House vote was pretty one-sided. Do you feel like the changes you made are enough to bring a lot of Republicans over on that side too? You guys got your chance to talk to them?
I expect for this bill to receive broad support in the United States Senate. Don't know the exact numbers that will be, but I certainly expect there to be votes sufficient to pass. And I would remind us that this bill passed the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs unanimously with an agreement that Senator Tester and I work out the differences. So every Republican member, every Democratic member of the committee has already voted yes for this, at least the broad outlines of a bill that we've now resolved. So I expect it to be broadly supported. And I've tried to follow the description of John as to what goes on in the United States Senate, and it's more complicated than that.
Wait. But we never said Republican, nor did we say Democrat. So we're calling the United States Senate Americans today. Those who vote against it, we're going to question their patriotism, them being true Americans, and them having humanity. This had nothing to do with Republicans or Democrats. So we're not singling anybody out. We're singling out the whole group of 100 people.
There's absolutely no reason, none, that this bill should be a Republican bill or a Democrat bill. It should be a bill passed by the United States Senate.
Amen, Jay.
Amen, Jerry. Anybody else? Thank you all for being here.
Thanks, guys. Good job. It's not about red or blue. It's about red, white, and blue.
Well said. Thank you.